goodness. Excuse me, ladies and gentlemen. It is wonderful to see you. I am so sorry that I'm a few minutes late. You know how life gets busy sometimes. You know how things happen in a very short period of time. Well, welcome, welcome, welcome. It is good to see you. Hello, hello, hello. I apologize once again. Busy. So, excuse me. Ladies and gentlemen, hello. Look both ways. Jason Reynolds. It is time. Yesterday we met a young lady named Cynthia. We've been working on this week the concept and the idea that that we are focused on character motivation. Why do we do what we do? But also, what do characters and why are characters doing what they are doing, right? And so we're always looking for those various pieces of the puzzle. What kinds of character are they by their actions, by what they look like, by what they say, by how they respond and act with other characters? And the idea that also the kinds of choices that they choose to make, right? Do they make good choices? Do they make bad choices? We were introduced yesterday to this young lady named Cynthia, whose true motivation really was to make her mom smile, but she never got the opportunity, right? And so we head to Rogers Street, if I'm not mistaken. Now, I want to remind you about Rogers Street. I don't believe we've been to Rogers Street before, but it almost looks, oh my gosh, I think I might know who this is. Okay, so do you see the block over here? I'm still seeing Cynthia, right? Do you remember the one person who sometimes came to see her? There were some clues about the fact that he may be smelling a little like he's going through some changes, right? Something about his last name being something about Pitts. But look at that. I'm kind of seeing somebody helping somebody else, maybe with some smells or something like that. But I also am super curious as to who that is going to be helping with. So, ladies and gentlemen, I don't believe we're going to be at Ookabuka Land, which didn't happen for very long, but how a boy can become a grease fire on Rogers Street is our reading for today. So let's kind of keep going with this idea of character. Let's keep that in mind as we read this section today, okay? Look at the first two words, Gregory Pitts. Remember, Gregory Pitts. Remember, you smell like your last name. So that's what Cynthia would always say. You'd always go like that, and that was okay anyway. How a boy can become a grease fire. Let's have some fun, okay? Read on. Gregory Pitt's friends love him so much that they told him the absolute truth. And the truth was, he smelled dead. Like rotten dead. It wasn't that he was rotten, but just that he smelled like his body had mistaken its organs for garbage. And that he was essentially a walking, talking trash can. There was a character in all the Charlie Brown shows who had a cloud following him. I thought he was always interesting. Didn't say much, but just kind of walked around with a little bit of a cloud around him. And not a sad cloud. It was like a stinky cloud. There have been other characters that I know, and there are people in my life that I know. Maybe you know somebody like that too. Real nice person, but not always smelling right? Not always smelling right. And I find it to be interesting that everybody is his friend, and they love him. They love him so much that they talk about how he smells. Now, I'll be interested to find out how that plays out. So one thing we know is Gregory Pitt smells, right? Smells kind of dead. Smells rotten. And on this, of all days, that smell just wasn't going to cut it. So in an act of service and sheer desperation, Remar Vaughn, Joey Santiago, and Candace Green, Gregory's crew, decided to help him out because today was a day of romance. Before we get going, you sure you good, Candace? Joey asked. I heard what happens to Bryson. Bryson was Candace's cousin. He'd gotten jumped the day before. Yeah, it's cool, Bry. He's a tough kid, Candace said. Plus, we walk him that way, so as soon as we get done with Loverboy here, I'm gonna stop by and see him. Cool, well, first thing we need to do is get you smelling right, Remar, who they all call Remy, and said to Gregory. Sorry, I gotta reread that again. Sorry, hold on a second. Sometimes we're just not quite there yet. You know what I mean? Like, wake up. Busy day, slow moving. Okay, I'm going to start this over again. Not the whole story, but this part about Candace being asked about her brother. Before we get going, you sure you good, Candace? Joey asked. I heard what happened to Bryson. Bryson was Candace's cousin. He'd gotten jumped the day before. Yeah, it's cool. Bry's a tough kid, Candace said. Plus, we walk him that way, so as soon as we get done with Loverboy here, I'm going to stop by and see him. Cool. Well, first thing we need to do is get you smelling right. Remar, who they all called Remy, said to Gregory. They had all met up by the benches in the front of the school. You got the stuff right? Candace. What is going on with my yawning? You got the stuff, right? Candace asked Remy. You know it. What is it? And why y'all talking about it like it's... Gregory caught himself. Know what? It don't even matter as long as it works. Oh, it'll work, Joey said, bouncing his eyebrows. Oh, it'll work, Joey said, bouncing his eyebrows. Remy dug around his backpack and pulled out a can of body spray. Now, Justin gets this stuff from the gas station. He says it's basically deodorant for your whole body. Justin was Remy's older brother, and he was always right. Let Remy tell it. He popped the top off the canister, close your eyes, and then he sprayed Gregory from top of his head to the bottom of his feet. A spritz or two even got in his mouth, sending Gregory gagging and coughing off. Hold still, Kansas ordered, while Remy spun Gregory around and sprayed all up and down his back. Smelled like a combination of burnt flowers and burnt rubber. But that was better than what Gregory smelled like. What his normal smell was, the smell is all-day funk. Funk, spelled F-O-W-N-K. Funk. No spraying, Miss Walkley yelled, pointing at Gregory and his friends. You know the rules. Go away if you want to spray. Miss Walkley's frustration came from the fact that there was always someone spraying something in the hallways. Always a perfume or cologne that was supposed to help but ended up stinking up to stank. But this was a special case. Either way, Miss Walkley's outrage was hilarious to Gregory, Remy, Joey, and Candace, so the four of them actually cracked up all the way. Go away if you want to spray, Candace repeated with a hoot. She a poet and don't even know it. A rapper that looks like a napper. Remy followed. A spitter? Way too bitter. Joe came in third. All their jokes matched the corniness of Miss Walkley's non-joke, which made them laugh even harder. Gregory half choking because laugh plus spray equals choke. They started walking, but they weren't walking home like they normally did. They lived in the Southview apartments, but decided today that they would walk over to Rogers Street because that's where Sandra White lived. Gregory had been trying to work up the courage to tell her what he liked, that he liked her, and wanted to know if maybe they could be boyfriend and girlfriend, even though he hated the way that sounded. Sounded trash. Together was what he preferred to call it. He had told Remy, Joey, and Candace that he wanted to do this and that they were in full support and along for the ride. Not to mention, Candace was the only one who knew where Sandra lived. She and Sandra were closer when they were younger, but they still were cool. Even though they were all in support of Gregory shooting his shot, they also told him that he'd need to prepare. He'd need to make sure he was ready and to put his best foot forward. First and foremost, he needed not to smell like a forward foot. He needed to smell better than the lunchroom, better than the locker room. Yeah, so I just hit you with the ooh And now you ready for some la-la, Remy said. He was always saying corny stuff like that, mainly because he swore he was some kind of mastermind when it came to approaching girls, thanks to Justin, even though Candace told him every chance she got that he wasn't. I think you hit him with too much ooh, like smells more like ew, Candace joked, curling her top lip up under her nostrils. But it was better than before, and since the smell part was worked out, it was time for her to explain the importance of moisturizing. Now that you don't stink, we got to make sure you ain't dry. Candace pulled out a bottle of lotion the size of a shoe out of her back. Candace pulled a bottle of lotion the size of a shoe out of her backpack. Gregory's eyes widened and his brows furrowed, leaving them with a look of astonishment and a little bit of fear. Where do you get that? He yawped, slowly relaxing his forehead. Found this in my mother's bathroom, Candace explained as they walked up to the corner where Miss Post, the crossing guard, stood. Miss Post blew the whistle and they all walked across the street and to the left, heading down Portal Avenue. Hold up, so I can do this, Candace said. Can't walk and lotion at the same time. The boys held up while Candace pumped the lotion into her hand, jamming the plunger down over and over again until she had enough to turn sidewalk to slip and slide. Let's start with them paws, she said, reaching out for Gregory's right hand. She began with his fingertips, then worked her way up, making sure to give extra attention to the webbing in between, which made Gregory snicker. Then onto his wrist, up his forearm, then she stopped. Elbows are important. Elbows? Gregory was confused. Elbows? Joey chimed in. You don't want Sandra thinking your elbow's so dry that your arm is going to crack and break in half if you try to hug her, do you? Candace asked, all kinds of serious. I mean, that wouldn't happen. Gregory looked at Joey and Remy. They didn't say a word, so he repeated himself. That wouldn't happen, right? Joey just dropped his chin. Wow. What? Now Gregory was really confused. That wouldn't happen, he said. Remy scoffed. Did everybody hear that? He said, that wouldn't happen. Let me tell you something, Gregory Pitts. I've heard stories, horror stories about dry boys who try to be romantic and they end up a pile of paint chips. You don't want to be paint chips, my brother, do you? No. Then let me do my magic on these elbows, Candace commanded. Then she went to work. First on the right elbow. Circles with centers of her palms, then pincher claw rubs, then tips of her fingers for optimal moisturizing. When his arms was as shiny as Mr. Davanzo's bald head, she started over, this time with the left hand. Fingers, wrists, forearm, and again, elbow, pause. Have you ever had somebody moisturize your arms? Fingers and hands and wrists and forearms and elbows. Oh, it feels so good. And then you get to realize that they've only done one side and then they go and do the other side. Oh, I love that feeling. Sorry. Sorry. Do you see how you can get connected when you start reading like this? That's the fun part about this. All right. Uh-oh, sorry, yeah, there you go. Okay, Gregory said, pulling away, a little embarrassed by the intention. Plus, people were walking by watching Gregory get worked on like some kind of car. But he could feel the difference. His fingers felt like they'd been freed from casts. Lotion. Who knew? Not done yet. Candace pumped more lotion from the bottle. Not done, he squawked. What good is all this if we don't ever make it to her house? We will, Joey assured him. And the real question is, what good is it making it to her house when all she's going to do is wonder why your hands and elbows glisten and your face looks like you just got jumped by 17 giant pieces of chalk and they only gave you headshots? Remy threw fake punches into the air. Exactly, Candace said, another glob of lotion piled in her hand. Come here. Gregory came a little closer as Candace rubbed her hands together. Then she slapped them on his cheeks. Gregory squirmed. But Candace wouldn't let up, pressing at his face like she was trying to rub smudges off of fresh sneakers, getting the creases of his nose and the corners of his mouth, ooh, and his earlobes. Even Remy and Joey were a little puzzled by that one, but they figured Candace knew what she was doing. A school bus pulled up to the stop sign at that corner, the clack of a window dropping. Hey! A boy from the bus yelled. Candace, Remy, and Joey turned and looked, but not Gregory. Candace clasped his face in her hands. You might as well give up. No matter how hard you try, that ugh mug won't come off. The boy spoke like his tongue was too big for his mouth, spit flying everywhere. Thank God, Candace shouted, because it might look like yours underneath. Then we'd be really in trouble, Remy followed. Joey didn't say nothing, just started searching the ground for a rock or something to throw, but the bus moved on. Candace brushed it off, then went back to business, rubbing her palm on Gregory's forehead, polishing it. There, she said at last, stepping back, admiring her work. You look not bad. That was as far as she could go. Any compliment more than that was kind of gross, especially against friends. I'm ready. Wait, question mark. I'm ready? Gregory asked, eyeing Candace's backpack nervously. Almost, Joey said, now unzipping his backpack. What now? Gregory took 2 steps backward. Well, here's the thing. There's only really one other thing you need to be ready for this. Something for your lips. What? Gregory took 2 more steps backward. Relax. I'm just saying. Chapped lips are gross, Candace finished. Like, for real? I mean, seriously, what if we get to her house? You lay it all out on the table about how you feel about her and how you would like to get her phone number and blah, blah, blah. And she says, who cares about a phone number? Give me a kiss. Joey bounced his eyebrows. Hold on. Just so we clear, she won't say that, Candace clarified. How do you know? Remy chimed in. Trust me, she won't. But she might be like, oh, he takes care of himself. Maybe one day I'll give him a kiss. Your first smooch, Remy teased like he'd kissed anybody, but he really hadn't. But if your lips look like they look right now, which is white with that weird burn ring around your mouth, Joey started, but Candace cut him off. Stop licking your lips so much, bro. It's gross, and it makes you smell like spit, which is, when added to the underarm stench, makes you smell like throw up. And as your friend, and as a girl who happens to unfortunately like boys, I'm telling you, it's a deal breaker. Candace's words sizzled and stung. Wow. Thanks for your honesty, I guess, Gregory said. It's because I love you, Candace said, shrugging. So with that being said, Joey pulled his hand out of his bag. In it was a Ziploc bag of goop. Got this from my mom's room. It don't come like this. I just couldn't risk taking the whole container out of there because she'd know and ultimately murder me, and I don't want to die before Gregory gets a kiss. Or before you get one, Remy said. Or before you get one, Joey shot back. Wait, hold up. Gregory got back to business. I got to use all that? No, from Candace. No, from Remy. Come on, man, Joey said with a laugh, pulling the bag open, the scent of menthol wafting out. Now, this is medicated stuff, so take it easy. Why? If it's medicated, then it should be good for me, Gregory said, dipping his finger in. And before Joey could reply, Gregory slapped the glob on his mouth and started rubbing it in. Joey's mouth dropped open. What? Gregory asked, and a nanosecond later said, oh, and then, oh, wait, oh. He started fanning his mouth with his hand. It burns, he said, his eyes starting to water. What you mean it burns? Candace asked, hands on hips. Joey, what you give him? Remy snatched the bag, scooped a fingertip of the slime, sniffed it. Is this? Sniffed it again. Held out his finger for Candace to smell. Is this Vapo Rub? Candace snatched the bag and took a big huff. It opened her chest immediately. Joey nodded sheepishly. Why would you give him Vapo Rub? Remy pretended to slap Joey on the head. We ain't have Vaseline, but this stuff's got Vaseline in it, so I figured it's basically the same, Joey explained. Dude, that's the stuff my mother rubs on me when I'm sick. It goes onto my skin and makes the entire inside of my body cold, Remy said. And don't your chest be greasy after she do it? Joey asked. I mean, exactly, Joey gave one single hard nod. Not the same, Joey. Candace's face was somehow between amused and annoyed. How was I supposed to know? He was going to treat it like pudding. Burning, guys, burning, 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 Gregory panted. Candace and Remy began fanning Gregory's mouth too. Just imagine, it's the burning sensation in your heart for Sandra. Joey pinched the bag closed inch by inch. Remy leaned into Gregory's ear, almost whispering in a fake hypnotic voice, Sandra. Then, because he couldn't help it, he added, sorry, man. And with that, they continued on down Portal Avenue until they got to Rogers Street. The whole way gassing Gregory up, trying to take his mind off his fine-lit fire lips by telling him how much they believed in him and how Sandra will too. What's not to love, Candace said, doing everything she could to keep a straight face. And when they finally got to Sandra's house, Remy, Joey, and Candace hung back. You ready? Remy asked Gregory. I think so, Gregory said, his lips still tingling. He pulled a piece of paper from his pocket, walked up the steps to Sandra's house, rang the doorbell, then ran back down the steps because Candace had been telling him how girls don't like it when you're all up in their space. You don't got to be this far away, fool, she muttered, nudging him forward. The door opened. Sandra poked her head out, looking confused. She still had on the sweatshirt she'd worn to school, light blue, yellow rectangles, a pattern that, through Gregory's watery eyes from his burning lips, looked like a bunch of school buses falling from the sky. What's up, y'all? She said, cocking her head, clearly trying to figure out what was going on. Gregory said nothing, just stood there, shining, shaking. Greg, Remy prompted, put his hand on Gregory's back, another nudge forward. Greg got something to tell you, Sandra. Right, Greg? That was from Candace. Gregory nodded, unfolded the paper, started reading. Sandra, you always get questions right in class, and I think that's good. And you never say nothing bad about me, at least not to my face. And so I just wanted to know if I could have your phone number. Candace looked at Joey, Joey at Remy, Remy at Joey, at Candace, at Gregory. They couldn't believe he'd done it. They couldn't believe he just asked her. Sandra walked down the steps, came right up on Gregory, twitched her nose, squinted as if the light bouncing off Gregory's shiny forehead was blinding her. He kept pursing his lips and blowing. What are you doing? Sandra asked. You ain't trying to blow no kisses, are you? No. Gregory's voice jumped an octave, maybe two, almost whistle high. I wouldn't. It's just my lips are burning. Why? Vapor rub. Why you put that on your lips? It's hard to explain. Why are you so greasy? That's hard to explain too. Why do you smell like that? That's hard to explain. Sandra finished for him. Gregory nodded. Can you try? Gregory's hands started shaking, the paper vibrating like dry leaves in the wind, and he looked down and started reading his notes of compliments again. Halfway through, he glanced up. Sandra was smiling, and Gregory thought maybe it was the kind of smile that just came before laughing. Then Gregory thought, but maybe not. Oh my gosh. What happens? What do you think? What happens? Did I skip a page? Then Gregory thought, but maybe not. What happened? I have no idea. Jason Reynolds, how dare you do this to me? Is this going to be one of those tricks that maybe later I find out? Or am I supposed to try to figure out right now? Okay, let me see. Is Gregory a good guy? Yeah, Gregory's a good guy. How do I know that? That's because he's got like 3 friends that are actually trying to look out for him. Obviously, he's honest because he's already said how he feels about her, right? I mean, otherwise they wouldn't have been able to help. Do these people care for him? They're not trying to mess with him, right? Like they're trying to help him in this situation, right? Yes, he's a good kid. He stinks. I don't know if he's good looking. They didn't tell me that. But just like kids, they're doing the best they can. They're borrowing things from older brothers and moms, counters and stuff like that. Like, watch my mom take care of stuff. I guess somebody had the plan that they needed some Vaseline for the lips, and that was his job, right? It was Joey's job. It was Joey's job. They didn't have Vaseline, so he decided to bring something with Vaseline in it. That makes sense. Problem is that stuff starts burning your lips. Ever had maple rub? Oh my gosh, my mama, when I'd have like a bad cold or something, she'd like rub it right here. And I love the feeling of it. I love the feeling of it because like it was like cold. And we kind of open up, but it's all over his cracked lips, his cracked, dry lips. It sounds like his skin is kind of cracked and dry too. I think he might have significant dry skin, and that's a very uncomfortable thing. I've had some friends in my world have some really, really dry skin to the extent that they need help with it. And sometimes they can't get help with it, right? Because it just is what it is. It's just dry skin. And that's just a fact for him. But his friends take good care of him and try his best. He's got great compliments on a piece of paper so he wouldn't forget and mess up like I did, like when I'd start thinking about Miss Rainey or something. And I'd be like, oh, my head's just spinning. I don't even know how to say. So I read it off the page, right? And it seems as though, if I'm not mistaken, Sandra's kind of happy about it, right? Sandra's happy. And he's trying his best, right? But there's this whole thing. Halfway through, he glanced up. Sandra was smiling. And Gregory thought maybe it was the kind of smile that came just before laughing. So it kind of means maybe he was a little bit worried that maybe she was going to start laughing at him. Then Gregory thought, but maybe not. What could that smile be? Because none of his friends have any experience with this kind of feeling, right? These kinds of feelings. So the idea of that is really, really fun. But we don't get the answer to the end of that story. Interesting. I have a feeling we're going to be going back to Portal Avenue, or at least the corner, tomorrow. So come on back and hang out. I'm having a pretty good feeling that we've only got a few. My goodness. I'm not going to tell you something, but I'm going to tell you that you come back tomorrow and we are finishing this book. I didn't know. There's a couple things in regards to, like, there's a whole bunch of questions at the end of this book. So guess what? You come back tomorrow and we finish this book. Another book in 2 weeks. I'm telling you, we're staying on it. I love it. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, come to the corner of Portal Avenue. Let's see what happens at the end of this show. I mean, at the end of this book. I mean, at the end of this story. I mean, at the end of 10 blocks, we are there. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so very much for this time. It was wonderful to see you look both ways. A whole lot of crazy is what it says on the back. I love it. I'm not telling you anything else. I guess you're going to have to come back tomorrow. We'll take a look at this stuff. But ladies and gentlemen, thank you so very much for your support. Thank you so very much for coming in and listening to a good story today. And hopefully maybe I connected you to something that you've done in your own life, or maybe something that you'll remember later on in life when you start falling in love. Anyway, I love you. Now, get out of here.